Today we're going to be talking about maths, more importantly, statistics. In Idle Heroes, when you unlock the Compass of Transcended in the Void, you have two choices. You can either go for Fate, which has a 6.67% chance of earning you a Transcending Sphere, or you can go for Guidance, which will give you one Transcending Sphere in every 15 cores used. Now, it is a big argument amongst the community of which is better, Fate versus Guidance. Now, for those of you that don't know, 6.67% works out at about 1 in 15, which makes you arguably think that just go for Guidance, right? I'm just going to get a Transcending Sphere in 1 in 15 guaranteed. Why would I bother to roll the dice and risk it in Fate? Well, there's one simple word, my friends: volatility. Even though the average is pretty much the same across these two things, 1 in 15, Fate has volatility to its favor. It is also to its detriment. Volatility means that the chance of success varies depending on what you're doing. Another term for this is standard deviation. It is how frequently or how much buy you expect to not get the average result. Now, with a chance of 6.67%, that's quite volatile. It means you could get loads of Transcending Spheres, or you could get none. And therefore, people argue, generally, that Guidance is the best. But today, I'm going to argue on the contrary. Allow me to explain why. When working with fixed statistics, when there is a fixed chance of success and failure, you can end up with what's called a binomial distribution. For example, if I tossed a coin, I have an equal chance of getting heads and tails, and they're my only two results, and that will end up with an even distribution of what I expect to get. Now, you can do this with any fixed statistics. So when you're in the Compass of Transcended and you're rolling in Fate, you have a fixed chance of success, which is 6.67%. So if we enter that into our probability, there we go. Now, the number of tries, well, that's going to vary depending on how many cores you have, and that will alter how this binomial distribution looks. Also, a huge shout out to Matt Bognar from the Department of Statistics and Actuarial Science at the University of Iowa, who developed this really nice piece of software which does this whole binomial distribution for you. I will link this in the description if you guys want to have a play around and see what the probability of you getting Transcending Spheres is from your number of cores. But either way, let's approach this. Let's pretend we just do one core. What's the chance of success? 0.0667. It's exactly the chance of what you would get a core from. That's normal. And 0% is 0.93 or 93.3%, right? That's, easy chance you're going to fail, guys. It's that simple. But guys, let's change the number. Let's change it to 15, which is the 1 in 15, and then press Enter. And you will see a massive difference. The chance of getting no spheres is 35.5%. That feels quite scary. That's 1 in 3 of getting 0. Yikes. The chance of getting 1, slightly higher than that, 38%. But the chance of getting 2 is almost 20%. Almost 1 in 5 people who roll 15 cores will end up with 2 Transcending Spheres. And there is a 5.8% chance, more like 5.9, that you're going to get 3, and there's even a very slim chance, even though it's 1.2.5%, that you could end up with 4. Now, obviously, this is going to get different as we increase the number. So let's say we did 1 core every day of the year. Let's make this 360. Now, what we expect from this, if we were going to do this in Guidance, would be to get 24 Transcending Spheres. That's if you're doing it in Guidance. But if I press Enter here, skadoosh, you'll see 24 slap bang in the middle. All of this trends around it. It creates what's called a normal distribution. And that means that pretty much you can have a pretty good chance of being on either side of this or right in the middle. Now, if you spin in Guidance, you are fixed at 24, right in the center. However, if you go and do it in Fate, there is a chance that you can be on this side or this side. Now, that's important because that assumes we do all of our cores of transcendence in Fate. Now, a lot of people will argue, I don't want to do it in Fate, because if you look at this, actually, the chance of getting 24 is 8.4%, but the chance of getting 3 is basically 8.4% chance again. there is an equal chance, almost, of getting 23 to 24. So most people will just go, no, that sounds like a lose. That doesn't sound good. There's actually a more weighted chance, even though it's very slim, of you getting less than what you'd get from going in guidance. So a ton of people say, no, just go in guidance. And funnily enough, if you blast this sample size way up there, this is 1200. That's a very big number. If you look, the chance between 80, which is what you'd expect, and 1 less is pretty much the same. So this is why lots of people argue that guidance is better than fate, because you're going to push yourself on the side of success. However, what that assumes is that you're doing everything in fate. But of course, as we mentioned earlier, the thing that makes fate special is volatility. And allow me to explain how volatility is going to push this in your favor. So the key thing is, when we're looking at these results created by a binomial distribution, that only looks at the end product. That looks at the exact number of transcending spheres you get from doing a number of calls. It doesn't look at the journey along the way. I bet you that in the majority of cases where someone ultimately gets a bad result, at some point they were ahead. So let's use some graphs to show you how you can use this knowledge in your favor, and hopefully it'll prove to you that looking at a binomial distribution is only helpful if you're going to do everything in fate. You can mix things in your favor, so let's take a look. So for me to explain volatility, I'm going to draw a very simple graph for you. On the x-axis we have calls used, and on the y-axis we have the number of spheres. Now if you go in guidance, you expect it to look like this. If you've done nothing, you have nothing, and it'll just go up in a lovely, lovely, jubbly straight line like this. That's exactly what you expect. It's completely fixed, it cannot be altered, and it's perfectly normal. Now let me show you how it can look if you're gonna do calls in fate. Generally, it will always have an upwards trend. It can never go down. You can't lose calls. So what you expect is probably something that looks a little like this at first. And then it'll go up, and then it'll go up less, and you're going to find yourself dancing around this line. Now, depending on where you are during your use of calls, you're going to feel like you're winning or you're losing. And that is the nature of just doing calls in something that's random. For example, let's say you're Mr. Lucky and this happens. You get loads, you rocket up, but then you don't get any more and you plateau for a little bit. That sucks. But then you get loads more again and then you plateau for a bit, right? That could happen. You could be that guy. You could get 5 in one go and then no more. It happens. It happens all the time. Loads of people get that lucky or unlucky. And unfortunately, a lot of people will get to this point here where you are below and it sucks, and then you stop. And you just lose all that progress you've gained. So what if I told you guys, what if I told you there was a way to fix success? And do you know what that is, guys? It's when you're winning to switch back to guidance. So for example, you see this lovely line here, this lovely linear increase. You can transpose this onto Mr. Green over here, and he always stays above because he switches to guidance. Mr. Blue over here could start off and feel like he's having a bad day, give up, and then stay on guidance, and he's always going to be below. That sucks. But if he'd have just waited to go up and then stuck on guidance, then he'd have always been above guidance. So generally, if you always roll in fate, it will always eventually trend towards the line of guidance. Now this can make people feel like, I just don't want to risk it, I don't want to gamble. But guys, you're not risking anything. As soon as you are over guidance, you're winning. You are doing well. And that's when you switch to guidance and just lock in that success. Start in fate, hit a jackpot, and then stay with guidance. There is nothing forcing you to stay in fate. And this is why I get annoyed when a lot of people are like, go in guidance. I'm like, no, all right? Just because you can end up with a distribution that looks like this doesn't mean you're always going to stay in this distribution. You're not always going to stay in the middle. What will often happen is it will just do this. You'll bounce between either sides. And you need to learn when to pull out and switch to guidance to then lock it in, because you will always stay where you are. Let's say you're doing badly and then you get the really lucky streak and you go here and then you switch to guidance, you're always going to be ahead. You're always going to be ahead on calls. So the question lots of you are asking is, how many calls do I need to be up to stay in? Well, let's say you play Idle Heroes for a year and you buy one core every single day. Let's call this 360. We're back at this graph we had earlier. Now, 24 is good. And I would argue that if you're losing, if you're doing really bad and you're back to 0, maybe you want to switch to guidance because you got no balls. That's okay. You got no confidence, you got no courage, you're going to play it safe, you gamble in fate, you manage to get yourself back up from being on a losing streak. You then switch to guidance and we're like, right, I'm not going to risk it anymore. However, if you find yourself going up and you're 2 cores up, I would stay. I would hold, because the standard deviation of this is 4.7. Now, okay, that means if you're 4 up, just lock in on guidance. The chance that you're going to get higher than that is so slim, because even the standard deviation doesn't go to 5, right? That means that the probability of you getting 5 up on 360 is so slim that it's marginal. If you end up that far ahead, just lock into guidance. So I would argue that if you're half a standard deviation up, which in this case, if it's 360 cores used, is 2, I would just lock in on 2. I would just say, right, I am 2 transcending spheres up, I'm just now going to switch to guidance. And that way you lock in success. Because what normally happens, and this happens to people that gamble on slot machines all the time, is they think, wow, I'm up. And they end up doing Mr. Green. They think, whoa, I'm up. And unfortunately, they then lose. They plateau and they do worse than they could have done if they were smart. Now, unfortunately, if it's slot machines, what ends up happening is not that. If I switch to yellow and show you what slot machines actually looks like, slot machines does this. Whee! Zoop! Right? That's what happens. You win lots, and then you keep gambling and you lose all your money. So kids don't gamble. I know from experience that slot machines can often do this to you. And what you think when you're at this point, and this is the dumb thing, this is the fallacy that confuses so many people. What people will often think is, I've used this many cores to get to here. So I should, based on this sample size, be able to keep that trend. But unfortunately, that's not what happens. Normally, you'll end up just going. Other people would argue that actually no, if you just stay there, you're gonna eventually flit around this and just move up as if you would in guidance. No, that's not how it works either, because you're forgetting to factor in the sample here, which means that often you will always stay on that line, which is what you expect from guidance. You will eventually come back to it. It's just the way it works, guys. It's just the way statistics works. You will always eventually, depending on how long you keep going, always trend towards the average. Therefore, as I said, when you're winning, lock in on guidance. If you're losing, here's the next argument. If you're losing, keep staying in fate, because eventually you'll hit a jackpot, you'll get a bunch of cores, and then you want to switch to guidance. Now, it might bring you exactly back to where you were. It might bring you to this point, and then just switch to guidance and play it safe. That's fine. A lot of people will do that. But if you do find yourself on the winning side, switch to guidance. So to anybody out there who's curious, anyone who's asking, do your cores in fate, gamble, and then when you hit the jackpot, switch to guidance. Don't follow any of these people on the internet that are saying, just do it in guidance. Because if you start losing, stay in fate, and you'll trend towards back where you should be, and then you can switch to guidance, and it will just be as if you were in guidance the whole time. There is no point to hang around in guidance. There is no point at all, because the chance of getting a few more cores is always worth taking. As well, a lot of people think that this is something just for whales, that for some reason you have to have 200 or 300 cores before you can do this safely. No! Time is not a factor. Whether you do all 200 cores today or you do them across 200 days, you're still doing 200 cores. You're still rolling that dice the same number of times. The only thing is, if you at home are doing them one every day, please have a spreadsheet or an Excel document or a piece of paper where you're writing down your results and comparing that to how you would do if you were doing it in guidance. And then when you notice that you're ahead of where you should be, that's when you switch to guidance, when you're ahead enough, whether it's 1 core ahead or 2 cores ahead. It depends on how confident you're feeling in and of yourself. But do remember, the further you push it, the more chance you're just going to trend back to where you were on guidance and lose all that progress you've gained. Remember that you will always trend to the average. But generally, guys, if you start in Fate, start winning, and then switch to guidance, that's just the way to go. Do not start in guidance. That just is evil. Wrong. Start in Fate, get winning, switch to guidance. So to end today's video, I'm going to do 30 cores here. Now, I wish I could do it for Fiona, but Fiona's not available, so we're just going to go for Sherlock, because literally, I don't mind, right? I don't care what non-light and dark hero it is. And Carrie is pretty cool. There's no other light and dark heroes I'm chasing, so we're just going to go for these guys, and we're going to see what we get. So let's do it. I'm going to do my M for good luck, and let's get some success. All right, Edgar. And whoa! There you go! That, my friends, is a win. We got 2 spheres of transcendence. 2 transcending spheres. So what do I do at this point? Well, you could argue, whoa, we're ahead. Stay in Fate. Keep going. Keep gambling. Keep winning, winning, winning. No, right? That's a lie. Because I'm ahead, I switch to guidance. And I do another 10. There we go. And we get a Dasmogue. We get all these heroes. We're going to skip ahead, and then I do 5 more. That's all we're going to do. Just another 5. 1. Mirage. 2. Christian. 3. Queen. 4. It's an Ent Elder. And finally, 5, guys. This is going to get me the guaranteed, there you go, the Transcending Sphere. So now, just there, guys, I did 25 cores of Transcendence, and I have 3 Transcending Spheres. So basically, when you gamble in Fate, you're up and winning, switch to Guidance, and you'll be fine. Does that mean Guidance is better? No, Guidance is a gift. Guidance allows you to lock in success and take your win and turn that win into your new average. So friends, if you ever find yourselves in this situation, start in Fate, get winning, then switch to Guidance. If you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below, let me know your thoughts, and hopefully this taught you a little bit about statistics and about binomial distribution, standard deviations, and just how generally, if you have the option of forcing an average in your direction, it is better to gamble and then switch to this.